Ladies and gentlemen of the BookTube jury, I submit to you my Women's History tag. It may not be the right month, but I've never been one to wait around for 1 month to celebrate groups of people. Why am I doing this tag? Well, I do try to be quite careful in the things I say, but should I stumble into offending someone, I thought it's probably best to get my bona fides out there for those who would like to look me up and see what I think about all this women writing literature stuff. And yes, I am, you could probably guess if you've seen any of my videos, one of these who believes, along with culture, as I do of cultural appropriation, that it's not a zero-sum game, and there's no conflict between the classics and the multicultural inclusions. We have, it's all good. It's all good stuff to read, enjoy, and share. So let me talk a little bit about my little humble experience of women's literature as it relates to some prompts from a video I found with Monica Reeds, and I couldn't quite tell if the original was with Weird Zeal or at Library Says. So you might find the original somewhere under there. And the prompts are, they sort of give a person, they hold up a person, and then they give sort of like a category. And I'll just give you the categories. So the first one is someone who flaunts authority. I can't remember if it was Rosa Parks or something. Someone who flaunts authority, right? So doesn't do what they're told. Now, immediately, of course, I thought of, oh, and the only guideline of this prompt, of this tag, is that you must, they must be women authors. Okay, so I immediately, of course, thought of the Gadfly. Voynich's Gadfly, which I haven't read, it's a great read. I do think, I can't recall that maybe the character is a male, but Gadfly is obviously, the rebel that jumps right to mind. But then I was also put of mind, I was trying to think of picaras, the picaro tradition with women, and I thought of the Heptameron. I want to say Marguerite de Navarre wrote Heptameron, which is sort of like the Decameron, but with 5. So these are transgressive stories, and they have trickster types and, people in spicy situations and transgressing all kinds of norms, typical of the formula, Canterbury Tales, all that good stuff. Okay, second is intelligence, a woman of intelligence. I really enjoy, my most recent find was Cynthia Ozick. I read a couple of her works. One is Golom, where this Golom character, she sort of accidentally makes it, I think, and it sort of helps her get elected president, or mayor of the New York City, I think it is. That's a crazy one. The other one is, again, it's male characters, but that I really enjoyed, was called The Manuscript of somewhere in Poland. And it's about a journalist and this sort of lost manuscript. Salonika? No, that's Greek. Should have looked it up. Well, anyway, Cynthia Ozick, check her out. Very bright, very intelligent. Also thought of second sex Simone de Beauvoir, but she could be the answer for all these categories. She's going to come in a second. Oh, in fact, right now. So the next one is powerful, or a woman in power. I think it was Elizabeth I was the woman that they gave as the example for that one. So I thought right away of Anna Komnena, who wrote the Alexiad about Alexander the Great. Of course, that's about a guy. So then I thought of second sex, because in one of her many sections, long, all of them quite long, she sort of does a survey of history, and including epics of history where women were in charge. And then I also thought of like Luci Tapahanso, she's a Navajo poet. This is a matrilineal society. If traditionally, if a husband were to come home, find his saddle in front of the door of the hogan, the house there, he was to take his saddle and move on out, and the children and the blankets and the jewelry and the livestock, of course, all would stay with the wife, with the matrilineal family. And you can really see that in her poems. She could also go for the warrior one in a minute, especially like Kinalda, the coming of age ceremony for the women. They're up, the girls, they're up all night, getting instructions, how to be a woman, how to be a wife, how to, be an adult. And then in the morning, they're, in their full velvet and, squash blossoms, decked out, and, have to run towards the rising sun in the east for, hours. Very, very heroic warrior women stuff. Okay, but the next one is actually beauty prose first. So the beautiful prose, I thought of sort of two extremes. The right away came to mind the sort of romantic, the more purple prose. Of course, I'm a French scholar, so de Staël, Georges Sand. My favorite is Indiana. If you haven't read it. But I also thought of, for some reason, immediately came to mind Marguerite Duras, which is actually new novel, the new novel, nouveau roman, is sort of people find it really kind of pared down, or sort of more spare prose. But I think especially if you saw the movie of The Lover, you can see the Duras is some beautiful writing. Okay, the next is the warrior prompt. Of course, immediately thought of Hong Kingston, woman warrior, which I did read and enjoy. But yeah, the sort of whole fantasy genre there, where you've got Macfree, Dragonlance, LeGuin, EarthSea Trilogy. You got the Sigrid Undet, Nobel Prize winner with the Kristin Lavensdatter and all those sagas. So yeah, lots of good women warrior literature there. And the next one, space. So it's always good to do these prompts and you discover your cultural chinks. So I do not, nothing comes to mind. Apparently do not read a lot of women, or men, science fiction. When I read them, I don't remember the authors. They're old dime novels, which said, tended to be men, or women writing under men's names, maybe even. But anyway, so I sort of, I need to go read some women's science fiction. I did think, of course, of, but that's more fairy tales, isn't it? The Angela Carter stuff. So that's, maybe more with the fantasy than the space. So I'm cheating on this. So I'm doing another Nobel laureate, Selma Lagerlof, and what she wrote was The Adventures of Nils. And it's not out in space, but it is flying in the sky. Nils is this goose who takes this little guy, and it's a children's, it's classic, and if you haven't read it, it's really good fun. And I'm sure if I think about it, there's probably going to be some female children's book authors involving space that I could come up with if I really rack my brain. But moving on, not to spend too long on this stuff, let's look at the next prompt. It's going to be underrepresented. Okay, what is underrepresented? Well, so many things, right? But for some reason, my mind immediately jumped to Native American literature. It is a genre I at one time read quite a lot of, and especially women authors, because I already mentioned Luci Tapahanso, Navajo poet, or Tene poet. There's Harjo is another poet, I believe, Louise Erdrich's novelist. Leslie Marmon Silko, Ceremony. Ooh, read Ceremony if you haven't. Really, really good. And then she's not a native, to my knowledge. No, she's not, because she grew up with the missionaries, right, with the Poisonwood Bible there. But anyway, I thought of her along with the Southwest thing because I loved her book Bean Trees. Also really enjoy Barbara Kingsolver. Maybe she's not underrepresented, but I just had to throw her name out there for you as well. LGBT plus, number 8, LGBT plus. Of course, Orlando jumps straight to mind. But I did read The Well of Loneliness by Radcliffe Hall, sort of the seminal lesbian coming of age, coming out work. And it was very affecting, very powerful. I definitely can recommend that one. Okay, next is award winners. So yeah, there's probably an interesting through line to be had with something with Song of Solomon, Burger's Daughter, Golden Notebook, these sort of African diaspora winners. Of course, Toni Morrison there with Song of Solomon is my favorite of hers. Burger's Daughter is Nadine Gorderberg, and then the Golden Notebook is, come on, Dan, you know this. Well, anyway, Golden Notebook is definitely a really interesting one to read, but they are white Africans, so that's interesting. She's also Iranian, British, she's from all over the place. So maybe try to find some black African authors as well. Women authors, Miriam Ba jumps straight to mind. Si long une lettre, such a long letter. There are a lot. So yeah, Doris Lessing is Golden Notebook. Sorry, I couldn't let it go. Doris Lessing, Golden Notebook. Yeah, so Miriam Ba and others. But the other, going back to the award winners, the other Nobel, and I should have looked up if the Goncourt, one of the French literary prizes, had been won by, I think it has been won by a black sub-Saharan African author, female author. Well, I can't remember off the top of my head. Okay, so but I want to highlight a quieter, unsung female Nobel laureate, which is Grazia Deledda. She writes these really charming stories from, I think she's from Sardinia, maybe from one of the little provinces or islands, and sort of folklore, very charming author, really worth finding. For some reason, she's one of the female Nobel winners that I don't hear people talking about a lot, so I wanted to highlight her. And finally, the last is the one, someone that inspires you. I thought I would take a detour to Honduras because one of my all-time favorite, there are lots of great Latina authors, as I'm sure you know, but I'm thinking more of like literary critics. But one of my favorites, she's from Honduras, is Helen Umania. And as it so happens, the first novel in Honduras, it was also written by a woman, sort of the costumist or costumista epic. She's called Adriana Marguerite. This was written by Lucila Gamero de Medina. And I read it, and it was fun. It was a good read. The probably most famous, unfortunately for a bad reason, poet from, there are lots of great Honduran male poets, Acosta, Sosa. But anyway, probably one of the most famous is definitely Clementina Suarez. And I'm going to read you her poem to finish up here called Combat. And she unfortunately was murdered. She was 89 years old, and they came into her house and killed her. So, as you can see, from this poem that I'm going to read you, she was outspoken, but very unfortunate. So that is sort of the dark side, the shadow side of our celebration of women's literature. I would be remiss to not mention it. So let me conclude on, and I hope you found something new here for you to read. I'd love to hear for you to share with me other female authors, especially as you can tell, I'm very interested in the classics, older stuff, and then sort of global. For me to check out, please share those names and titles with me as well. And let me now recite for you Combate. I'll read it in Spanish. I always think it's nice to hear things in there, especially with poetry. and I'll do my best to translate it. So this is Combate. Yo soy un poeta, un ejército de poetas, y hoy quiero escribir un poema sibalato, un poema fusiles, para pegarlos en las puertas, en las celdas de las prisiones, en los muros de las escuelas. Hoy quiero construir y destruir, levantar en andamios la esperanza, despertar al niño, arcángel de las espadas, ser relámpago, trueno, con estatura de héroe, para talar, arrasar las podridas raíces de mi pueblo. I'm a poet, an army of poets. I want to write a poem, a whistle poem, a rifle poem, to knock them on their doors, on the cells in the prisons, on the walls in the schools. I want to construct and destroy, to lift up scaffoldings of hope, to wake the child, archangel of swords, to be a spark, a lightning flash, a throne with the stature of a hero, to trim, to clear cut those putrid roots of my people, of my town, of my country. So that is Combate by Clementina Suarez, rest in peace. And thank you for sharing with me my my love of all literature, but literature written by women in this specific case. And should I offend you in the future, please do forgive me, and know I do try my best.